Welcome back to the Shenanigans at Shreya podcast. My guest today is a musician from the band Seafall, an incredibly mathematically inclined human, someone I have so much love for and is one of my best friends, and happens to be my amazing brother, Aarya.
That's me. That's me.
Woo!
I'm the real one.
You're the real one. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. As I said, I'm the real one. If anyone acts like they're pretending to be that's not me. I'm the real one.
Nice. Would you like to say a few words about yourself and to introduce yourself to people who may not know? But I
All
know you
right.
have a lot of fans anyway, but just in case.
All right. This is for the people who aren't my fans, the people who are going to become my fans after this episode for sure. Yeah, I'm Arya. I'm the sibling slash brother of the person doing this whole podcast thing. I'm
Excellent.
currently a first year in Warwick University studying maths. I'm a big anime fan. I do that kind of stuff. Play some games, I guess. I have pretty standard hobbies, one might say.
Yeah, very cool. And we'll dive into all of that today a little bit. But I first wanted to talk a bit about the intersection of, I'd say, your mathematical side and your artistic side, because I think you've mentioned to me once that you view maths as art, like it's like the world makes sense. For most people, a lot of us tend to differentiate between maths and art, but I think your view on this is like they're very intersected. So I wanted to talk a bit about how that intersection feels like for you.
Now, like in terms of like that intersection, I guess in school at least a lot of people learn math as a set of steps you have to follow, a formula that you just like plug some numbers into, put it into a calculator, call it a day. I don't know. Maybe that works for school maths. University level, at least, I think it's pretty standard to have to be more, I guess, creative is the best way to explain the problems we're trying to solve. At the end of someone's school maths career, they might come across integrals, that type of stuff. I'm sure you're familiar. I'd say integration is the first like part where creative expression exists in school maths, at least. Because at that point, there aren't any real formulas you can follow. There's no set of steps, no fixed plan that you can follow just to solve an integral. In most cases, lots of integrals can be solved set of steps, but for complex ones at least, you need to think outside the box. You need to play with the idea in your head. You need to throw a couple of ideas in your head around. It's a lot of thinking. It's not a lot of putting your hand to the paper trying to solve stuff. It is in the head, and I feel like that might be similar to how, say, a poet might come up with a poem or something. I guess they have to be in the mind space. It's tough to explain.
Yeah, very
Uh,
cool. I feel like when I visually see maths, because I'm a visual learner, so it really helps for me to kind of move away from these numbers on paper where I can actually see them. So, for example, this year I learned about like scatter plots and this technique called PCA. You might have heard of it, like principal component
mhm.
analysis. And there was just something really satisfying being able to look at these like scatter plots and understanding the data. And for me, I really like to see data represented in like an applicable way rather than just like, you know, on paper. So I think obviously everyone has their own different way of learning. A lot of the school system would probably encourage just the kind of, paper, pen, like number situation rather than exploring the other, I guess, connecting realms of it. I know that you weren't a fan of like you're leaving certain maths that much either.
I know it might be weird for someone to say that like they didn't like they didn't genuinely like a subject that they were good at, but I can't say I had that much fun with my maths at leaving cert. I've heard this quote before, and I think it's the best way to describe school maths. But it's like they're trying to teach you how to read and write sheet music without listening to actual music.
Mm.
It's what school maths always felt like to me.
Yeah,
I'd call myself a hobbyist mathematician, whatever.
that's nice.
I've looked a lot. I've looked at a lot of maths, like in my own time, and that like is not part of the school curriculum in any way. As you said, you can get really nice visual representations in lots of modern YouTube video maths. They have amazing animations, and I think it's made more of a gateway to people who want to do like hobbyist maths. I think people are more likely to be able to hear the music instead of just learn how to read and write it, you know? I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
that school makes you do.
No, I get what you mean. I think it's nice to mention the visual mathematical YouTubers because in a way, like, it's only possible in recent years that we can actually
For
really
sure, for
visualize
sure.
data, you know, because in the olden times, they had to work with the paper and, you know, drawing it all, and I really liked what you were saying about what school kind of focuses more on just, like, reading and learning it rather than playing the music per se. I was actually having a conversation with one of our CFAL members, we'll move on to CFAL in a second, but uh,
Mm.
he was also just saying how, like, a lot of school-based learning is very much, like, not practically applied, which makes it hard for the students to connect to it properly. And it is something that I really want to read more about and explore in my own time as well. Just like what would be the most optimum way to, I guess, introduce an education system and have exams, quote unquote exams, but like in a good way that like actually benefit the student. You know what I mean? I think university does it more than secondary school in a way, but yeah, that is my take on it. We mentioned Seafall very briefly now, and I really want us to pivot into the Seafall side of things. Um,
Woohoo!
so you are in our band Seafall. You and I
That's
both
me,
are in
that's
our
me.
band Seafall.
That's
Our
you.
goat, the goatest of all time, Seafall. And tell us a little bit about how like the band formed, because you are one of the founding members. How did it
Mhm.
happen?
One of, if not the founding member, one might say.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, no, I mean, you might know because you've known me since I was a young child, but I guess sometimes you hear about these musicians who like who've been at it from like the age of 2 or something, who've
Mhm.
been like learning to play music and all that, who've always dreamed of being a rock star. I never had the image of wanting to be like a big musician or rock star or anything personally. In 2023, late 2023, I was just learning the guitar for fun. Well, not even fun. It was like you had an electric guitar, you didn't have an amp for it, and for your birthday, I wanted to get an amp, so I wanted to like learn a tune or two on the guitar to show you how cool the amp is.
Mhm.
But then I liked learning the guitar so much, I just like I just took it. No birthday gift for you, sadly.
Yeah.
But yeah, while I was learning the guitar, I had a lot of fun doing it. I'd bring the guitar to school, like play with my friends during break time, all that. And one of my school friends, he was like, "Aarya, you're learning to play guitar. I know how to play the bass. What if we banded together to make a band?" And
Mhm.
I don't think it was ever like that serious. It was like, yeah, we should do this one day. Yeah, totally that kind of vibe. But yeah, one day in May.
2024.
Right. Yeah, 2024. Random flyer comes around looking for young musicians in Kilkenny.
Yeah, our hometown, so it's
I mean, if
fine.
people Google up Seafall, they'll know where we're from because it's on
Yeah,
our Instagram
that's
bio.
fine. That's fine.
And speaking of which, you should follow Seafall on Instagram if you haven't already.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Aria, say that
y-
plug.
yeah, yeah. So I saw this flyer. I was like looking for a band, looking for young musicians, and I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. But no more
That's
thinking,
cool.
none of this not confident type stuff. This is an opportunity, let's just take it. I brought it up with the fellow classmate of mine who wanted to band together, but he was like, you know, I don't think we're at that level yet. Perfectly fair. I don't think I was that good at the guitar either. We'd never actually played before that point, by the way. Played together, as in we just knew what instrument the other played. That's where my understanding of his musical career ended. But after he said, "Nah, I don't think I'm down to do it," that kind of thing. When I saw that flyer, I was with one of our friends, also known as the drummer of Seafall, Adam,
Shout
who
out.
yeah, and I was like, "You play drums, right?" He was like, "Yeah." And I said, you better play drums for me in this event that we're going to go in for sure, for sure.
Mhm,
Do you know anyone who plays bass, considering that this person, this school friend of mine who played bass, didn't want to join us?"
mhm.
Then he told me that Mikey plays bass. I didn't actually know that. So then Mikey, Adam, myself, we're all good friends. We've known each other for years. Um,
Youth patron shout out.
For sure. Hit all of them up. I'm supposed to be the guitarist. We have a drummer. We have a bassist. Now we need a vocalist. I wonder who the vocalist is going to be.
Mhm.
I knew someone with a pretty above average voice for sure.
My goat.
So I hit that person up. Another friend of mine, Adam, would have known this person as well. We all banded together. We had a vocalist. It was pretty big,
Ah,
pretty cool. We had 4 people. Lots of bands have 4 people.
the
That's
vocalist is
great.
me, by the way, guys, in case you haven't caught on.
Yeah. So our good friend Mikey, Adam told me he played bass. Mikey said he was much more happy playing the keyboard. And of
Mm,
course, my job is to make sure my friends are as happy as possible. I urged him to play the keyboard.
mhm.
But now we're missing a bassist. But I knew The only other musicians I knew were like guitarists that were better than me at guitar.
Mhm.
So I was like, you know what? I'm sure the bass isn't too hard. Bass and guitar, they're the same instrument. I can pick it up in whatever 1 month until the event was on. So then I contacted one of my guitarist friends. That would be Thomas.
Goat.
Pretty good. He's a pretty good guitarist, pretty above average. And
Mhm.
yeah, five of us we met up. We played together at the event, and we didn't look back since.
Exactly. My side of the story is that I mean, my whole life, I feel like I've been very musically inclined. Around the time when like Billie Eilish was getting quite popular, I was really interested and intrigued by the story of how like herself and her brother Phineas were making music. At the time, you were quite young, Aria. I think you must have been like I don't know, 13 or
13. Yeah.
yeah, around that, like, just entering your teens, and you hadn't really picked up music at that time. So, to me, I was like, "Oh," like, because I was doing a lot of solo music at the time, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder, like, who could be, a collaborative partner for myself?" And it's really cool how, like, just with time, just 4 or 5 years later, like, I was on holiday with one of my best friends, and you called me while I was on that holiday being like, "Oh, would you like to be a singer for my band that I'm making?" And I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, like, sure, that sounds amazing." So that's how it happened. It happened maybe I think the start of June, you put people together. We all got together at the end of June, and our performance was in July. And it is true, like, I think we literally made our band Seafall for the event that was happening. We didn't expect it to be as, I guess, binding of a force for the all of us.
Being in a
And
band is just too fun, you know?
yeah, and I think it really helps that we're, like, genuinely really good friends, like, we see each other at youth theater every weekend, we see each other at something called Nerd Club, which is, like, a gaming club, like, not gaming as in, like, video games, but gaming as in, like, hangout, card, and board games, and I just think we really enjoy each other's company. We have, like, our annual traditional Seafall sleepover and things like that, and it's just, like, true friendship, which I really appreciate, and it's just been so fun, like, going on this musical journey together, and we've gotten some pretty good opportunities, with, like, music festivals and things like that, so it's only upwards and onwards from here, truly. By the way, guys, the band Seafall, like, the name was a WhatsApp voting poll, essentially, that's how it was chosen. But I wanted to ask you, Aria, like, you write and produce quite a few songs for us, so can you take us into what your writing process, what your production process looks like?
Production is I just used Guitar Pro. Guitar Pro's interface is pretty similar to writing sheet music for a guitar, and I know how to read sheet music for a guitar pretty well. So I just
Mhm.
use that. It's not the highest quality. Well, it's high quality for what it is, but you wouldn't get as much range. It's not as versatile as a lot of other softwares that pretty much anyone will give on a top 10 music production softwares for beginners list. But it works for me because realistically, I'm not intending to make full tracks. I just want to make a little demo of a musical idea to share with the band because I know it'll sound way better in person um,
Mhm.
when we play it. In terms of like my general writing style, I think it is just a lot of what I listen to, what I like listening to, really inspired by that. When I wanted to make demos for Seafall, because I know I wanted to contribute like my ideas. And I'm sure lots of artists like have this experience, but when you get an idea in your head, it's just like it sounds like the greatest thing that's ever been conceived in the history of humanity. But then when you actually like put it to paper and actually try to realize it, it's like not actually that good until you put like a lot of effort into it. You can't just transport the idea into your head and poof, it becomes real, you know?
I mean, yeah, it's a work in progress, right? It's like you put layers to it. And then I think when it's shared with the band, we're able to contribute our own personal, I guess, ideas and shape it in a way. And I do agree. I think it's always better once it's been worked on by the band. It just sounds amazing. Like it really does. I think there have been genuine moments when we're, recording or like having a band session essentially that we're just like, whoa, that sounds so cool. Like what,
Yeah.
And it's like those slivers of magic that are lovely to really be in the presence of. I also wanted to talk about your chord progressions because I know you're heavy into music theory, and I've heard from just, I guess, our band members about the chords that you tend to put in these songs. So, how do you structure your chords and what do you think when you're going into it?
Yeah, no, I'm like the number one public enemy when it comes to making like my guitarist unhappy with the weird chord shapes. Earlier when I said I wanted to contribute, I wanted to make this stuff. At the start I had no idea how to bring the sound in my head into like a guitar sound. I don't have perfect pitch or anything. And to be honest, my ability to play by ear is really, really bad. So even with a lot of trial and error, I usually can't get that sound that I want to make that's in my head. So
Mhm.
at the start, let's say June, July, August 2020, I watched a lot of music theory videos, specifically about the music that I like to listen to. So that
Mhm.
would be like, I listen to a lot of anime music, J rock type stuff, some emo stuff here and there. Big fan of that. A lot of like learning the theory, learning covers for songs you want to do. Like, honestly, I'd say if someone wants to learn music theory, the best thing to do is just to cover
Yeah.
songs you want to do. You'll see patterns that arise in songs, common chord progressions, common like musical ideas that will come about and like makes those sounds that you like. And I feel like once I've at least tried to learn those songs on the guitar by myself, I'm able to translate some of like what that makes that song special to me into a song that I want to make. Yeah, it's a lot of covers. Yeah,
Yeah, very nicely said. I actually relate to that because there was a time when I wanted to improve my own, I guess, like listening ability. So I used to play music, like listen to a song, and then just based on listening to it, try to replicate the chord progression. Mind you, I don't listen to like, J rock, so the chords progressions are a bit more simpler, but I think it is a fun challenge when you're trying to, figure out like, okay, is that on the third or is that on the fourth chord? And it is a nice trial and error thing to do. I personally do it on the piano. I think do you do it on the guitar or on the piano when you're doing, like, this sort of
I
work?
mean, to be honest, like I'm still not confident I could play a song by ear. I usually hope that someone's just made sheet music for it online. But nowadays, I think I am more confident than I was. I can probably figure out the key of something, and then like once you figure out the key, it's just like you have a lot less to trial and error through.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but it's like a muscle, right? It's like you'll keep improving, I guess, as you
yeah, for
practice.
sure.
And there's something you said there about the patterns that you see with chord progressions. And in a way, it does tie down to maths because, like, there is this intersection between, maths and music. Even in Trinity College in Dublin, they were doing a course about like maths and music combined. Do you see a lot of, I guess, mathematical ideas and structures when you are listening to music or like producing music?
I don't know like about specifically mathematical structures, but like I know certain things in maths like tickle my brain in a certain way, certain patterns, seeing a random like function somewhere that you don't expect to see it. When I see that in math, I get pretty excited. When making music, sometimes it does tickle a similar itch. Specifically with the guitar, chords are effectively just shapes, right, on the fretboard.
Yeah.
Shapes you're making with your fingers, and sometimes I think those shapes can be pretty nice, pretty beautiful. Seeing those shapes on a fretboard gives me like the same itch as seeing some like cool mathematical crossover between two concepts, because maths is a lot of like piling up of concepts that like collaborate with each other even if they don't seem connected at the start. Maths has a lot of that.
Very nicely said. When you talked about the shapes that your fingers make on a fretboard, essentially, I do find sometimes, like playing any instrument, when you really get into the rhythm of it, it's like this repetition essentially of just playing over and over again. Like it could be the same chords, but there is something very like intoxicating about locking in on music. Like when you reach that flow state for music, which is quite nice. You listen to a lot of, I guess, anime and J rock.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk about anime and all that jazz.
Well,
So this is the most important part of this the podcast, guys.
that's
Aarya's
true.
gonna
Tune in, fellas.
yeah, so in depth into this. So you wanted to talk about a director. If I'm saying his name wrong, just tell me, like Kunihiko Ikuhara? Is that
Perfectly said. Perfectly said.
perfectly said? Okay.
That's him.
So you said that this is one of your favorite directors, and I looked it up, and he has famous works like Revolutionary Girl, Utena, and you said that his work is very woke and complex. So let's talk
Yeah,
about it.
pretty
Well,
woke. It's pretty woke. I
yeah,
mean,
what would you like to share about it?
yeah, Revolutionary Girl now what you mentioned is like one of his first directorial works.
Mhm.
I'd call it his directorial debut, even though he worked on some stuff before. It was just like specific episodes of different series that he was directing, but like Revolutionary Girl Utna is like his first thing. I might be wrong on this, but I think it's the first depiction of an interracial lesbian couple on any visual media ever.
Ooh,
That's pretty woke if you ask
he
me.
was woke. He was woke.
Yeah, this is in the 90s, by the way. Yeah, pretty good. And his way of storytelling, it's definitely not for everyone. If I had to describe it, most stories in general, in a way, they're about pressure in a sense. When there's conflict between two characters, there's pressure between them. When there's a mystery to be solved, there's pressure between the character and the mystery they're trying to solve. And the reason you would find a story particularly moving is how that pressure gets moved across the story. Like once that pressure reaches its peak and gets resolved, the difference from that peak to its resolution, that's where your enjoyment comes from, I feel, in a lot of cases. So for most stories, they have antagonists, they have protagonists, they have very concrete, very defined ways to create this pressure, this engagement with the viewer. But in Kunihiko Ikuhara's works, it's a lot more abstract. There isn't a defined antagonist, and sometimes like you can't even tell what the plot is. The plot is after a certain point in a lot of his shows, the plots are just told in through visual metaphor rather than actual like things happening. And even I'll admit sometimes I have no clue what's going on the screen in front of me when I watch his stuff. But like in a way, some of the visual metaphor, some of the imagery, even if it doesn't make sense on a like sensible level, like A is bad, B is good, therefore A should beat B or whatever, even if it doesn't make sense on that very logical level, some of the images resonate with me on an emotional level. I think that's pretty pretty good for a show to do, to resonate with someone on an emotional level.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, isn't
Yeah.
that kind of the point, right? They want to make the audience feel something. I had 2 follow-up questions on this. So, the
Mhm.
first one is, you mentioned that he's a very woke director. So, in the 1990s, how was his work perceived by the audience at the time? Because it was, very woke. Was there any resistance to it? Was it welcomed? How was the public reaction?
No, I haven't actually looked into that too much myself. I haven't personally seen any negativity around its woke elements like online personally. I haven't
Mhm.
seen anything like that. But even in the show Revolutionary Girl Utna from 1997, I think the queer elements are very subtextual. It's not
Okay.
like they have like girls kissing on screen or anything like,
Mhm.
and it's not very explicit. It's a lot more subdued, more nuanced. Well, you get what I mean.
Yeah, 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 I see. And my other follow-up question was, you were talking about how you can't really see any, like, inherently good or bad, I'd say, characters or parts of the story. So would that imply that each character or each story is very multi-layered and complex, that they have, like, a bit
Very.
of both, you know what I mean? Like, they're good and bad, like, kind of dualities of life in general.
Yeah, for sure. They're very layered. And I think what I was talking about earlier with how sometimes I don't even know what's going on. In a way, when those images like resonate with me emotionally, it's because of what the images mean to me personally. It's what I'm trying to say is I think it's very easy for someone to have a different interpretation to me in the Kuniko Ikuhara work.
Yeah.
Very easy for people to have lots of different interpretations because there's no concrete meaning. As I said, they're very abstract and it can mean something very different to each individual person.
This feels like if abstract art was videography or like in film, it sounds like that would be the kind of, direction that Kunihiko Ikuhara's like work is going in. If you were to put someone on to this director, what would you recommend they watch?
Revolutionary Girl Utna was his first work, and it's one of his most like I'd say it's one of the most important works in anime in general. But
Mhm.
I, I think I have to recommend my favorite work, which is called Penguin Drum.
Oh, Mabaru Penguin Drum, is that the one?
Yes, yes. So Penguin Drum, it's a second work, I believe, after Utna in terms of like
Mhm.
being a director. And I think it fixes a lot of issues I have with Utna. In a way, Utna's message is a lot more, I feel, important for some people to listen to.
Mhm.
It Utna is a lot more woke, I'd say. But Penguin Drum, it just, nah, it's just so good. It's really weird. To be honest, when I was watching it, I was like laughing at how like bad it was at times. But like at the end, when everything happens, of course, I'm not going to spoil anything. To be honest, even if I spoiled stuff, it's going to sound so fake. Like, cause like you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that happens in this show. To me, as I said, everyone has their own personal interpretation. I've seen lots of analysis videos and they have different opinions to me. But to me, it's about how like the best thing you can do, the best difference you can make to the world is just be a kind person, loving person to the people you care about, more than trying to like create a revolution, trying to like change the world through some bombastic event that's going to like change everyone's worldview. More than that, it's important to be the best person you can to the people around you and to give them a reason to like love life and all that. It's so good.
Aw. I feel like a lot of the things that you watch, guys, Aarya is my brother, like, he tends to give me a lot of recommendations, we tend to watch a lot of anime and, movies together, and a lot of the things you watch tend to have that message in them where it's like, "Be the best person you can be," and it's really uplifting and inspiring, and I think more people need to be put on this, honestly, so thank you for sharing that.
I just really like things like that personally.
I mean, I think it's
Uh,
necessary, right? It's like
yeah.
you're, in a way, also rewiring your brain to see the positivity in things because you're surrounding yourself with positive media. So even from just a healthy mental health point of like view, it's pretty good to have that sort of media around you.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of people do just see like watching shows and movies as just entertainment, nothing too much. They're gonna watch it, think it's good, and like probably forget about it. Not too much personal impact. But I feel like it is important to have pieces of media like that that you hold close to your heart.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think any sort of media that moves you, you'll keep talking about it your whole life. Like when you're older, you'll be like, oh my God, like you still have your favorite list of, I guess, books, anime, movies that you want to talk about. And sometimes they're rare to come by. They come by every few years. And then sometimes they can, be frequent enough that it's like, oh my God, I'm on like a golden spree at the moment. And I actually, when you were talking about Utena, you mentioned that it was released in 1997. And that actually reminded me, and you're welcome to talk about this if you want. You and I were once having a discussion about what decade would you have wanted to be born in,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And I think a lot of the media you consume, again, because I am your sister, I know a lot of what you consume, is based in the 90s. So do you want to expand a little bit on your thoughts about this whole decade?
About like the 90s in general, or why like it's pretty good to be born in the year 1990. I think we decided the year 1997 was the best year to be born or
Exactly.
something.
So
Yeah.
why don't you elaborate why you think 1997 is the best year to be born in?
All right. First off, we were discussing which year it would be the best to be born in all human history, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I personally think you have to live in the time of internet, at least in some point. The internet is like such a game changer. So definitely, if you're born in 1997, by the time you're a teenager, as long as you live in a decently well-to-do place, you'll like have internet access by 2010. No short form content yet. I think that's a W in my opinion. No, doom scrolling has not been invented yet. If you're born in 1997 until you're like an adult, you won't spend your teens doom scrolling as a lot of people do. And a lot of gaming consoles back then, I have a soft spot for a lot of retro gaming consoles. It's not like we own any, but I play on emulator, and the game catalog for a lot of stuff, the PS2 and Sega Saturn. You've heard me rant about this. Sega doesn't make game consoles anymore. It's so sad.
Yeah.
The PlayStation 2 might be the greatest console of all time, just in terms of the game library. I can't lie.
Yeah, I think a lot of even just revolutionary games that still made the platform for what games are today, you know what I mean? Like, they all started
Yeah.
in the late 90s and the beginning of the thousands, and not gonna lie, I mean, I was only born around 5 years after that, so what you're saying is very like, we didn't have doom scrolling, we didn't have internet to the capacity that we have right now, so I feel like I enjoyed a very internet-free childhood, which is hard to say to, I guess, the generation that's growing now because, they're so addicted to their phones, and I guess it's also just the fact that it's so prevalent in society now, but I do think when it was just emerging, it would have been a really nice time. 1997 would be 10 years before you were born, so I do get that, like
Yeah.
because I feel like when you were born, we already had a Wii low-key. You grew
And
up with
I'm happy with that. I'm not complaining. Like,
Oh, yeah, the Wii guys. Aarya and I are big Wii warriors. I love the Wii so much, like, I will always have that.
yeah. So just PS, your goat Katamari Damacy. Yes.
Katamari Damacy, is it a PS game, actually?
Yeah.
Guys, if you want a game to play, we'll try to put you on Katamari Damacy. It's so good, such a fire game. It's so quirky.
There's a remake on Steam, I'm pretty sure. By
Yeah,
very recent, I mean like 2023 or something.
do you want to explain the game in a few in a few sentences for our audience?
All right, so you play as the prince. At the start of the game, you're like 5 centimeters tall, and you're rolling up this little like ball called a katamari. The goal is to basically roll up as many things into the ball as possible, and it's super satisfying. At the end of the game, you're like rolling
It's
up
so good,
clouds and rainbows and stuff.
so good.
It's a pretty good gameplay loop.
He put me on this game over Christmas break. Like, Guys, I feel like I know myself and I know that I am an addict when it comes to good games, so that's why I don't have anything on my own laptop. But the minute that Aarya put me on this game, I was genuinely just like, "Aarya, can I please go on your laptop? Like, just for a little bit. Like, I really want to play this game." And I think the most satisfying levels that I played was the one where, like, we were rolling up the world. So it's like you start up in a neighborhood and then you get bigger and bigger. And then, the countries, you can roll up like the Eiffel Tower, the Colosseum, and then you can roll up like mountains. And it's so satisfying. And the music is great. The king who owns the cosmos is so funny. Like, it's
That's my
a
goal.
really well-rounded game. And Arya and I just really, I guess, enjoy. And recently also, you've put me on Marvel vs. Capcom, which is another fighting game. So just fire, guys. Virgil, my goat. So yeah, if you're looking for games, guys, Katamari Damacy and Marvel vs. Capcom, pretty fire games. Now, we were talking about anime, and just before we kind of move on, I wanted to ask you, what are your favorite anime shows?
My favorite anime shows. I mean, the amount of subliminal like suggesting I've done to you to watch this anime, Steins Gate, it's like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a massive fan.
I think you watched it maybe. What age were you when you watched this now, Steins Gate?
I'd say 2021, so 13, almost 14.
Yeah, because guys, he literally like he really did subliminally. Like every dinner we'd have, every chance he'd get to talk to me, he'd be like, "Shreya, by the way, you should watch Steins Gate. By the way, they say this in Steins Gate." Like I was hearing it so much, and then eventually I caved and I watched it. It's quite nice, and we'll come to this in a second when we talk about visual novels as well. But it's really cool how that shaped so much of your, I guess, just perception of the world, and also because you were at like a,
Very susceptible age.
yeah, vulnerable age.
13, 14, the most susceptible of
You were
ages.
just entering your teens, and I think it made a really good, impact on you. Now that we've talked about anime, I think hand in hand goes the talk of, drumroll, visual novels. So we'll talk about visual novels. So it is a very niche thing for me, but I know there's a huge, like, ecosystem and there's a huge fandom about it. So let's talk about visual novels. How did you get into it? How did it change your life? Because I know it changed your life. So the floor is yours.
I mean, Steins Gate, we were just saying my favorite anime. It's based on a visual novel, just saying.
Mhm.
Visual novel is also 10 out of 10. Probably I haven't played it
Yeah.
because my former device broke while I was playing it. Now, I'm not one to rank mediums. You'll never catch me saying something like books are better than movies or something like that.
Mhm.
Now, I agree that like there are some stories that are like better suited to books than suited to movies, subject
Mhm.
to change by like how the director or the writer chooses to present it. I feel like the type of stories that appeal to me are very well suited to visual novels. For those who don't know, visual novels, they're these weird hybrids of games, books, anime that like no one can seem to decide whether they're playing a visual novel or reading a visual novel. Effectively a text-based game. You're clicking through text boxes. That's most of the gameplay. But these text boxes will have dialogue, they'll have prose, and on screen you'll also have sprites to represent the characters. You'll have backgrounds, and these backgrounds can be absolutely like gorgeous, by the way. If you see some pictures of some visual novel backgrounds, they're just breathtaking. But yeah, you have some visual elements, you have like the prose that a book can offer, and you also get some really good music in the background. And I think people really underestimate how much good music can just set the mood and make a moment feel different. Visual novels like used to be called sound novels because of how important the sound elements were considered for the storytelling. But yeah, just it feels like you're getting the best out of a book with all the prose. You're getting the best out of a comic or a manga kind of situation where you have these kind of cinematic pictures, these stills that can like create a really good atmosphere. And then speaking of atmosphere, music, seriously, having some good music, like having an emotional piano piece played during an emotional moment will just make it like 20 times better.
Yeah. Would you say it's a blend of visual media and then books?
Uh, I would, yeah, I would. The form of storytelling pretty unique to this era now that we have computers and all that. It's also unique in a way that a lot of visual novels have the option to give the player choices and the story can change based on your choices. I don't think anything like that really seriously existed to before computers were around. I guess there were those pick your adventure kind of books, but the scope of
Yeah.
visual novels are much larger. They have a reputation of being really long. So some of the most popular titles can be like 50, 70, 100 hours long. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, when you were saying that, I remembered there was a time in around, I'd say 2018 or so, maybe I was like 15 or 16, when the concept of like Choices the game had come out, where it's like you play in a similar sense. Obviously, visual novels are much more nuanced, much more interesting stories, and much longer. But Choices was similar in the sense where you choose the character, you choose these options, and according to what you're choosing, the game is progressing. And I know that there's a Netflix movie, I can't remember the name of it now, but there's a Netflix movie that did a similar thing where you choose what happens in the movie based on like an interactive choose the next scene thing, which is quite cool. Obviously, you only get to do that a few times in the movie, but again, it's very cool to see that kind of integration of book and visual media. And I
Yeah.
wanted to actually ask, do you know when visual novels came around? Like, how old would they be?
So, like, the first thing that could be classified as a visual novel at the time they were still being called quote unquote adventure games for some random like rock, paper, scissors simulator in Japan where you talk to the character and play rock, paper, scissors with them. And like, this could be the late 80s, early 90s. I genuinely have no clue. Although the first time the word visual novel was used to describe this kind of thing, once again, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I believe it was this thing called Shizuku from 1997 or so. Good year to be born.
Goodyear.
Probably earlier, I had to guess. You can Google it up, but it's called Shizuku. The company that made Shizuku also like they're a massive like pioneer in the industry, I guess. Pretty OG. They're the OGs.
Just Google this now, and it was actually released in 1996, so very, very close. Basically, just a year
Okay,
off. And
watch
would it be right to say that, like, you watched Steins Gate first, right? Like the actual anime. Would that be correct?
for
And
sure.
then did that introduce you to visual novels because you found out that Steins Gate was based on a visual novel?
I actually didn't find out Steins Gate was a visual novel until like kind of later. Now, at the time, I was really big into mysteries. So I had played Ace Attorney. Ace Attorney can be considered a visual novel. Some people say it has too much gameplay to be considered a visual novel, but it has a similar style. Then from Ace Attorney, I played Danganronpa, which is similar to Ace Attorney. There are these trials, you have to find the murderer. They have pretty similar appeals, but Danganronpa, it's significantly more visual novel-ish than Ace Attorney. There are less gameplay moments, I'd say personally. And then from there, I played something that's like actually 100% visual novel, no gameplay. It was called Chaos Child, which is made by the same company as Steins Gate, which is how I was told about it basically. Someone knew I was a big Steins Gate fan. They told me to play Chaos Child. I played it. It's pretty cool.
Oh, very, very cool. Now, we spoke about how your favorite anime is Steins Gate. So, what would you say your favorite visual novel is?
Boy, you know the answer.
I do know the answer. I'd like you to introduce your audience to it.
No, it's called in Japanese you would say Umineko no Nakukoro ni. In the English title would be Umineko When They Cry. You can find it on Steam and all that. Can't even describe it. It's not like I'm showing you the tip of the iceberg. I'm showing you the boat at the pier that will take you to the iceberg. That's how little I can really like talk about it. And not because I want to avoid spoilers or anything, well that too. But in a way it's metafiction. It's a story about stories. It's not a traditional story at all. And I haven't read anything like it since, and I hadn't read anything like it before. It's very, very unique. But ultimately, why it's my favorite visual novel is like its personal importance to me and its message. Without love, it cannot be seen. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Because mind you guys, I was observing this, right? I saw Aarya get into Steins Gate, I saw him get into Umineko, and he was at the beginning, like you were around, 13, 14, and it's almost like the, I guess, traditional, stereotypical rebellious teenager vibe never hit you, because ever since you watched or played Umineko, you were like, oh my god, without love it cannot be seen, life is meant to be living. Like, you turned into this really wise old guy, like, you know what I mean? I feel like you turned
I'm
into
a
the
big
person.
kindness fan.
Yeah, yeah, and it was really refreshing to see, but also very cool that, media could make such an impact on someone's life, and it has also culturally influenced you because you're learning Japanese now, and I think a big part of that has to do with
Hmm.
the fact that you're so into, the anime and the visual novel world.
Visual novels, I feel, yeah. There are a lot visual novels are still niche. There are lots of visual novels that aren't translated at all, that even from the same creator as Umineko that like I'm interested in personally, but they're not available in English, so time to learn Japanese.
Because I know you've been telling me to play Umineko, and I promise you I will at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it. I know a lot of the characters and very vague parts of the story, but I feel like it genuinely will be life changing for most of us based on, I think, just like the way it really shaped Aria. Like, I don't know what it is. It just it really transformed him. And I think it's really cool. So yeah, essentially, I wanted to do a rapid fire round with you
Oh
before
boy. Thinking fast isn't my strong suit, but go on.
you could just say first thing that comes to mind, yeah? So what
Sure,
about
I will.
tell us a fun maths fact.
All right. But fact. Uh,
Mhm.
well, I liked, this is a fact that I quite liked when I was like 13, 14,
Mhm.
very susceptible age. Um, but 7 is the only prime number that is one less than a cube number. That is, 7 is one less than 8, and 8 is 2 cubed. And
Okay.
7 is the only prime number. Like, there are infinitely many prime numbers, and 7 is the only one that, like, follows that.
What do the other prime numbers follow then?
Well, all I'm saying is they don't follow that. I can't make any statements on what they
Ah,
do follow.
okay. I see, I see. The next one, Utena or penguin drum?
Penguin drum, easy.
Okay, now I know this is kind of under wraps, but it should not be under wraps in a few months. When the audience listen to this and if Default songs are out, what is one song that they should stream? Like from our EP that's gonna come out pretty soon.
Well, the obvious answer is every single song because they're all bangers. But
Exactly.
this is completely recency bias speaking, but like the current demo that we're working on right now, the name is still subject to change, but like you know the new one, the TBD name is I Hate Matcha and Coffee and Bubble Tea or something. I forget.
Oh, that one.
That one,
Okay,
that one.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's probably not going to be the real name, I can't lie, but like
Aria had a
the,
clickbait title,
yeah,
so
yeah. We need a clickbait song. We need engagement bait. We
yeah.
need to randomly release a YouTube short with the title addressing the allegations, but like
Honestly,
with no allegations, just for engagement bait.
yeah, I'd suggest sticking around because I think Seafall's marketing campaign is gonna be really funny and just chaotic, but in the best way, so stick around for that. Next question, traditional books, anime, or visual novels?
Once again, as I said, I'm not the kind of person to say books are better than movies or anything like that. If I was to talk about the medium that has given me like most of my favorites, it
Hmm?
would probably be anime, but like that's because I watched way more anime than read books or visual
I
novels.
mean, you love them both, that's fair.
I love all of them.
What's one storytelling cliché that you're tired of and you'd like to have it stopped?
I'm not actually that big of a fan of love at first sight unless there's like a really like specific reason that it exists. By reason I mean like there's this one sci-fi visual novel I read once where like there is love at first sight, but that's because like they have these neural chips in their brains and there's like I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a lot of lore with the neural chips and all. Because of that, that's the connection they felt at the start. Love at first sight for no reason. That's just kind of
It's so
you,
cringe, man, so
it's not,
cringe.
it's not, it's not even cringe. You're forcing the story to happen. Like, the
Yeah,
story isn't
yeah.
happening on its own. The writer has to force it to happen because it's not going to happen on its own otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I watch a lot of rom-coms, but I really don't like it when it's like, "Oh, love at first sight." I'm like, "Guys, there has to be an actual reason why." Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
there has to be like development. It's like the author gets too lazy to write like an actual love story, so they just say it's love at first sight and call it a
100%,
day.
yeah. Alrighty, next question. Would you say that maths explains human behavior, or do you think we're too chaotic for numbers to explain?
That's a question, isn't it? Now, my first thought is that like maths in a way underlies physics. I don't know if you've heard this before, but maths underlies physics, physics underlies chemistry, chemistry underlies biology to some degree.
Yeah, I think you've told me this actually, yeah.
Yeah. In the end, biology is still at its core the interaction between atoms. Atoms at its core is the interaction between like the forces and stuff of physical particles.
Yeah.
Particles can be explained the mathematical expression. So if we're saying that all of human behavior is biological in nature, then following that train of thought, I think there is some way to say that maths can somewhat describe human behavior. I don't actually think that all human behavior is biological in nature. I think there's something dodgy going on there, if you get what I mean.
What do you mean something dodgy going on there? Really well said, by the way, the earlier part, but what do you mean by the dodgy part?
As in, do you think that every single action a human has ever taken in the history of humanity is biological in nature?
What
That
do
they're
you
doing
mean?
it because of their biology, because of a biological reason, or like because of some interaction of the cells in their body, that every single human decision is rooted in that.
What's the alternative that you are talking about here?
Now, I know your podcast it's a science podcast, so pseudoscience might not be that big, but like I'm fond of considering the existence of a soul, a non-biological entity. Say I was thinking about a scene in Penguin Drum right now. The idea is that that imagination of mine, to some degree, they're like the firing of neurons in my brain, right? me
Mhm.
imagining it. But what's causing those neurons to fire? Is it just completely random? Are they just choosing to randomly fire at that moment? Or is there something that compels those neurons to fire in the way that they do? Something that
Yeah.
compels my personal agency to do stuff. Something that compels me to like, if I wanted to drink water right now, I just drink it whether I'm thirsty or not. I'm labeling that personal agency as your soul, pretty much.
Yeah, I really like this way of thinking, by the way, because when you were talking about, do you think that all behavior can be, demonstrated by numbers or logic? I also believe in, I mean, it's not even about believing anymore. It's about the fact that there is a factual, partition between, yes, the physical, biological brain, but then there's also the mindful soul part of it. Mainly because when it comes to memory and dreams and imagination, there's so much we don't know and we can't really pinpoint science or neurological pathways to it and we do believe, especially with like things like meditation. I've told you this fact before and you think it's false, but it's actually real.
I don't think it's false. I'm just saying it sounds like
It
a false
sounds false.
fact.
Yeah, it sounds like a basically, guys, when you're growing up, you have different wavelengths when you're sleeping, when you're awake. It depends on the fact on like how they're oscillating. So when you're awake, you're in let's say alpha, beta wavelength. And when you're sleeping, you're in more like delta wavelength. So they're just like different frequencies. And when you're a child, you have theta wavelengths as well. What's really interesting is that when you're grown up, the only way that you can connect to a theta wavelength as an adult is by meditating, which I think is a really, really cool fact. And I understand that it sounds fake, but again, it kind of opens up this realm of like you're literally connecting to your inner child, which I think is so, so cool. One of the reasons why I'm studying neuroscience to begin with is my own personal curiosity with the intersection of mindfulness and low key spirituality. I know it's called pseudoscience, but there is science behind it, like with things like affirmations or manifestation, like they do work on the brain to a certain extent because you're rewiring your own brain. Even imagination, actually. Imagination is also one of those things where it's like you're creating these emotions or these pictures in your head just by merely thinking about them, I had this podcast episode earlier about like, the Olympic winners. I was trying to discuss like how a lot of athletes tend to visualize winning constantly, like over and over again before the big day. It's because your brain like literally thinks it's going through it. And I just think the brain is so cool, guys. The soul and like everything intersected together. It's just so, so cool. So do read up on it if you get the chance. Like there's some really
Hmm.
fascinating facts out there. And yeah, thanks for bringing that up as well, Aria. Goat. Next question now. What is a childhood memory featuring us that comes to mind right now?
Comes to mind right now. Watching like a Think Noodles Pop Tropica video as you try to play Pop Tropica.
Yeah, that's so true. Arya used to watch me play a lot of games, obviously because he was like very small and he wouldn't really, properly play. He used to watch me and then as he grew older, we started playing together. So Pop Tropica, for those who remember, was a game made by the author, or like not a game, but like a gaming platform made by the author of The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I'm pretty sure. Really fun game. All these islands, all these
Yep.
stories. It was like genuinely such a vibe. And sometimes when I was stuck on an island, I would watch a Think Noodle YouTube tutorial on how to get through this island. I think the only one that we never really got was Skullduggery Island, because I just never managed to like get past the pirates. But really, really fun game,
It
which I
was
think,
all like, to my recollection, it was a lot of grinding. Like it wasn't really that fun. You just have to like alternate between like three islands selling stuff,
yeah, because you had to buy enough like cash. Yeah.
slowly get the money to buy a shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was too much for, like, my 9-year-old self, you know what I mean? I was like, "I'm not doing this." But yeah, I mean, those were the times, guys, the golden era of, Pop Tropica and all of these, like, computer games at the time, like, websites. I don't think Pop Tropica exists anymore, sadly,
It does.
but
It does.
it does? Wait.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Play because Flash Player like stopped working. They're basically remaking all the islands from scratch, so it doesn't have a lot of islands that we
Yeah.
played as a
Because
kid.
I just looked it up now and, like, it doesn't look the same, you know what I mean? Like, the user interface, the design is slightly different.
As I said, they have to reconstruct it from scratch because Adobe Flash Player stopped
Oh,
being
wow.
supported.
Adobe Flash Player, my goat. Anyways,
Yeah.
next question. What is one album that you'd want to recommend to everyone?
One album, music album.
Mhm.
I could go for the basic answer. I'm actually a big My Chemical Romance fan, and I love the Black Parade.
I
Um,
knew you were gonna say that.
of course, I would happily recommend Black Parade to anyone, but if for anyone who's into metal, that's not everyone. A lot of people hate screaming vocals completely. To any metal listeners, I would have to recommend Stories That Last Through Sleepless Nights. It's definitely my favorite metal adjacent album. I didn't like screaming either, but like Loki, this is a band that like got me into liking it. So props to them.
Yeah, I mean, the Black Parade I did listen to, like I'd say a few weeks ago, like it's very recent, like, and such a good album, guys. Like genuinely so good. I added most of it onto my playlist because I just loved it so much. So yeah, My Chemical Romance, pretty nice. What is the biggest misconception that people have about visual novels or anime
About
culturally?
visual novels or culturally, dude, I can't lie that there are a lot of like, let's just say like not exactly tasteful things to talk about on a podcast. But like in general, at least even in college, one of my friends, she's pretty active in the anime society, but like at the start she said she wasn't interested in joining because like it was Anisoc and the image she had of Anisoc was like just a bunch of like jobless chuds who just don't like leave the house, don't do any exercise, that kind of thing. I think having general misconceptions about a group of people like that in general is kind of cringe. But
Yeah.
yeah, the idea that like I think it's very stereotypical like American nerd kind of loser kind of image that anime fans have. So
You show him, Aria. You show him.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But okay, finally, describe the relationship between maths and art in just one word.
beautiful. I mean,
Oh, very nice.
I can look at lots of maths proofs and genuinely call them beautiful, you know. The way you'd call a poem beautiful or a scene in a film beautiful. It's not a matter of being visually or audibly or it's not a matter of appealing to your senses. It's appealing to your brain directly, if you get what I mean. Like the very idea is beautiful, not like how you perceive it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, very, very nice. Do you have any parting words for our listeners today?
Stay safe, stay healthy, be kind. Being kind is pretty good in this economy. Yeah. Kindness makes a better world. That's all.
Oh, without love, it cannot be seen.
That's so true.
You tell them. Anyways, thank you so much. Guys, make sure to
Yeah.
also check out Seafall Official if you want on Instagram. We'll be releasing music very soon. And yeah, thank you so much for showing up, Broski.
Okay.
It's been a fun conversation. And yeah, I will call you later.
Yep.